Okay, good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Oh, Monday. It's Monday. Monday. I get confused.
Someone best to come that quickly.
It'll come soon enough. We spoke, I think, last week about shmura matzah and machine matzah versus hand matzah in terms of the chametz issues. But I want to ask a more basic question. Jews all over the world eat matzah. And when you say the word matzah, everybody knows what matzah is, whether it's square, whether it's round. My question is this matzah in any way similar or related to the matzah that our forefathers ate when they left Mitzrayim? In other words, what was the original matzah like? Is it in any shape, manner, or form similar to the matzah that we eat today? Clearly, the answer is no. But we have to try to discover what is that matzah that they ate. What is a matzah? What is the origin of the word? Where does it come from? And what was it originally? What did it look like? So, first of all, before the advent of machine-made matzah, all matzah was round. Whatever matzah was all round. The first machines I mentioned were the early 19th century in France, which caused a whole bunch of problems, which we discussed already. In America, the first machine-made matzahs commercially available were 1888 by a Lithuanian Jew named Dov Ber Manischewitz. And of course, when those machine-made matzahs were made, they had to be square to fit into the boxes. And there's a whole different process. We talked about the chametz issues in terms of that thing. But the matzah that we eat today bears no resemblance to the original matzah that was eaten when our forefathers left Mitzrayim. When you take dough and you mix it with water and you roll it out, the rolling pin, generally it assumes a circular shape. I mean, if you've ever done any baking, you know that when you roll out a dough, it's very hard to make a square by hand. When you roll out dough from a little ball of flour or water, it comes out round. And most handmade flour and dough mixtures are round. For example, pita bread, tortillas, lands, chapati in India. Ethiopians have something called injera. Georgians have puri. Afghans have naan, and others. Most of the traditional breads that are made are round because that's when you make them by hand. That's how it comes out. Shmura matzah, of course, also is round because it's also made by hand. You take a dough and you roll it out with a Valgaholz, a rolling pin, and it comes out round, and you perforate it, you throw it in the oven. That whole process takes maybe 11, 12 minutes at most. In Chumash, how are matzos described? And how do you translate the words? And it's difficult, well, not difficult, but if you want to be technical, ugot matzos. Torah talks about ugot matzos, all right? That's what they baked because they didn't have time to allow their bread to rise, so they made ugot matzos, which you could translate in all probability, the most correct translation would be round flatbreads. Uga is round, is circular, and a matzah, as we'll see, is probably some type of a cake, but around like a flatbread, similar to a pita. By the way, the modern pita that we eat is not the original pita. Original pita didn't have a pocket. It was just a round disc of dough that you could put stuff in the middle of and fold over.
More like
a lafa. Well, but again, modern lafas are open up and you stick stuff in some lafas that in Israel. If you go for a super large pita or a lafa, they stuff it with stuff. They slice, whatever, again, depends how you want to eat it, but basically, the original flatbread didn't have a pocket. It was made flat. And it's a disc, it's a cake. And we have this also by Avraham. When Avraham greets his angelic visitors, and he tells to Sarah, hurry up, take dough, knead it, and make ugot. Give him, again, measures that it was Pesach, whatever it might have been, but uga and ug all refer to a circular disc of dough that is baked. Now, when they left Mitzrayim, did they have ovens? No, they didn't have ovens. Now let's think about it. They left Mitzrayim in a rush, which is why the bread didn't have time to be baked in an oven to rise. But they didn't have ovens to bake the bread in. I mean, they didn't have portable ovens with them. So, they're running out of Mitzrayim, needed something to eat. People on the run don't take their ovens with them because you can't schlep an oven with you, even a portable oven. And they couldn't plug it in anywhere. Ovens were made out of clay, pretty heavy. Not necessarily attached to the wall, but standing or mounted on something. And ovens today in the Middle East are still made from clay in some of the more primitive areas. And they couldn't have stopped to make one because they were on the rush to get out of Mitzrayim. So, the word matzah itself doesn't give us a hint. The word matzah, matzat, to squeeze, to suck, or to press liquid from, even the Greek word, matzah, refers to barley bread, are not necessarily related to the matzah that they ate when they left Mitzrayim. So, in order to try to do some archaeological investigation, obviously we don't have any remnants to examine, but we can look at some linguistic archaeology, if you will, in what we call cognate languages similar to Hebrew or those that perhaps may have preceded Hebrew. The two most common cognate languages to Hebrew are Aramaic and Arabic. Let's start with Aramaic, which was the language that was spoken throughout the Middle East until the Muslims took over, and then the major language became Arabic. But before Arabic became the language of most of the Middle East because of the Muslim conquests, Aramaic, even in a few places in the 20th century, they still spoke Aramaic in certain places in Turkey. There was even an Aramaic newspaper at one point in the early 20th century. But Aramaic was the language. And if you look at the Aramaic or even Arabic, we'll get to, but the word matzah, and you look also at the early translations into Aramaic of the Tanakh, the word matzah occurs 30 times in Chumash. And in every one of the cases where the word matzah appears, the Targum, which is the earliest, Targum Onkelos, is the early, maybe first century Aramaic translation. Every time the word matzah appears, it's translated as patir, P-A-T-I-R in English, patirin. So the ugot matzos that are described as what they ate when they left Mitzrayim are considered to be gritzin patirin. A grits is a round cake. So far, no great chidush. So a matzah is a patir. Good. What's a patir? How did they make it? Here's where the Arabic helps us. Bedouins are wanderers through the desert. There are still Bedouin tribes today that are, you see them along the roads in their tents, in Israel in some places. And the real Bedouins don't have a permanent home. They go from place to place in their tents. I remember years ago, the government of Israel tried to civilize the Bedouins. So they built them a little town, and they took them all and put them into town. But it was very hard for them because in these little like buildings, apartments that they built for them, there were carports, and the Bedouins who were put into these apartments put their donkeys and their horses with them in the carports. It was very. They live in the desert anyhow. It's a very primitive lifestyle. You still see it, and in Arabic, the Bedouins have a certain type, what they call hasty bread, quick bread, which is similar to the patir that we're talking about. And it's not baked in ovens because nomads also travel from place to place. If you look at a nomad camp, there's no, other than a tent, which is a hasty structure, they don't have permanent kitchens per se or ovens. So where do they do their baking, or how do they do their baking? What's that?
They carry things and they expose them to the sun.
Well, not much the sun, but we'll describe what they do. They would take flour and water, make their little ball of dough, whatever it might be, and roll it out. They take a little fire, which you can make out of flint and steel or using rubbing wood, to get ash. They make a little a fire in the sand. And when the dough is formed into balls, they would pat it out round and thin. They would extinguish the fire and put this ball of dough flattened out directly on the coals and cover it with sand. A few minutes later, they take off the sand. Their little flat bread would be cooked, dust off the ashes, and eat it. That's called hasty bread in Arab, and that's the patir. And it's commonly called abud, arbud, liba, and it's very similar to our, again, the original, I think like a pita bread, but without the opening inside. It's a flat bread. It's a plain flat round disc, and this is the Bedouin bread. There's another type of hasty bread which they would make, and they would have, again, a little fire, and again, there are no ovens, but they take a bowl, a metal bowl, put it upside down on top of this little fire, and the bowl would get heated. They would slap this disc of dough on the dome of this upside down bowl, and that would cook it. And this I've actually seen, and this is called a fatir, similar to patir. So fatir, patir, I think we're dealing with the same word, at least linguistically. And this type of bread has been made for thousands of years, and it's still being made by nomads who travel the desert from place to place in Israel as well. This could have been what the original matzah was like. I remember, I have a friend in Israel, Yitzchak Sokolov, made Aliyah from Boston many, many years ago. And he's a tour guide. He runs educational tours. Excellent, excellent tour guide. But the fun is traveling with him one-on-one as a friend. He takes very interesting places, off the beaten track. And one day he takes me, he says, I got to take you someplace. So we go into Meir Sha'arim, but not the main drag. In and out of alleyways, back streets. I couldn't have found my way out if I tried. I would still be it today. And we wound up in the backyard of some alley in the middle of Meir Sha'arim. And there's a woman there, and she has like a little fire going in a fire pit with a metal dome on top of the fire, on top of the coals. And she's making these balls of dough, flattening them out, putting it on this hot dome of an overturned bowl. And a few minutes later, you have the most delicious pizza you've ever had. Delicious. They're still doing that today, even though they're not in the desert. But some people are making this flatbread. Again, over centuries, words might change their meaning. The Targum's translation of patir is very similar, again, to this word fatir that they eat today. In Tanakh, in Sefer Malachim, Eliyahu Hanavi survived on this type of bread for many, many, how long did it say here? Where is it? It doesn't say, it talks about Ugat Ritzafim. He talks about these round cakes that he took with him into the wilderness. The Malach apparently cooked it for him. You look it up in the Sefer Malachim. And it lasted for 40 days. All right. Today, Jewish families polish off boxes of matzahs a lot faster than that. But in any event, this type of flatbread, first of all, flatbread is flexible, right? It's not like a cracker, like our matzahs. Now, historically, you have Bavel and you have Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael was mostly an agricultural community. Bavel was more city-like. So I'm not sure what they ate in Bavel on Pesach. I don't know. I do know that in Eretz Yisrael, for many, many generations, their matzah was more like a lafa or a pita. The best proof we have from that in the Haggadah is Hillel. What did Hillel do to Mekayim al matzos umrorim yochluhu? He made the equivalent of a sandwich. He put the matzah, he had this round uga, and he put whatever he was using for korech, the lettuce or ground up whatever he may have used for maror, and he made a sandwich. He folded it over and he made a sandwich. Before the Earl of Sandwich invented sandwiches, Hillel was the first inventor of the sandwich. Well, you can't fold matzah. Korech means to fold. You can't fold a matzah, it will crack. And everybody knows when you're trying to eat the Hillel sandwich with a kazayas of matzah, it's a mess. It's very difficult to do. You're dribbling all over it. It's hard. It's difficult. But that's Hillel. So apparently for a long time in Eretz Yisrael, they ate this soft matzah or uga, which in many Sephardic communities, ad hayom, until today, in Sephardic communities, their matzah does not look like our matzah. Their matzah is probably close to what Hillel and people in Eretz Yisrael ate for thousands of years.
Why did it switch?
I'm sorry?
Why did it switch?
Okay, so the problem is it's very difficult in terms of chametz to make this type of flat, but people aren't as skilled, perhaps. At least that's the chash. Rav Shechter dealt with the question, can an Ashkenazi eat the Sephardic matzahs on Pesach? Not such a simple question, because that is not our Masorah today is the Shmura matzah, which, again, I would think from the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim, probably until sometime towards the end of the first century of the Common Era, everybody ate the soft matzah. That was Ugos matzos means round cakes. But somehow when the Jews, after the Churban Beis Hamikdash, when the Jews spread into Europe, and either the technique, now the Jews who remained in the Mideast kept that minhag, and they still do today. But those that became the Ashkenazic Jewish community kind of lost that skill, that ability to make those kind of matzahs, and they made the hard cake matzahs that we eat today. And it's still the minhag today. But we'll never know for sure, but my guess is that using the Arabic or Aramaic, that the original matzah, the Ugos matzos that the Chumash talks about, was probably very close to the Bedouin patir or fatir, which is the soft type of pita bread. The only problem is when you're making this type of Ugos matzos, the soft one, you have to be very, very careful that it doesn't become chametz, because the process is somehow speeded up when you're using soft as opposed to getting it done within 11, 12 minutes, which is the current time span that it takes to make matzahs. We talked about the problem of machine-made matzahs, which is a separate issue in terms of chametz, a dough getting stuck in the machinery. But other than that, our custom is to eat the hard, cake matzahs that we eat today. But the original matzah and the matzah that's still eaten by Sephardim is probably the soft version. And I'm not sure that the Ashkenazim have the technique or the skill that was passed down. That's their Masorah. And many Sephardic communities still eat that. And it's interesting because we in the Ashkenazi community generally don't have access to that kind of matzah. You don't see it advertised. Every other matzah you see on the shelves. I have yet to see in any store soft matzahs. Because I don't know if any Ashkenazi poskim will give a hechsher to it because of the problem of chametz. Yeah.
Even if you had a hechsher, pita bread and stuff like that does not get preserved for a long period of time.
No.
It gets stale.
Correct.
So therefore, you can't package it a month in advance. So you got to make it on the spot almost.
That's correct.
So therefore, that's the difficulty.
Well, the truth is that before the modern age with packaging and then putting it in plastic and preserving it, people used to bake matzahs during Pesach as well because they didn't have enough to eat. So but again, the type of oven that would produce the soft matzah, you could probably make it in our contemporary. The ovens that are used for hand matzah today are very similar to a pizza oven. Very similar. And many of them are heated with wood. Some are gas, some are wood. And it's a very similar process. But clearly, the matzah that we eat among Ashkenazi Jews is not at all like the matzah that our forefathers ate when they left Mitzrayim because they didn't have the capacity to make ovens and carry it with them. So they dug a little hole in the sand, made a little quick fire, put it in, take it out, and that's what they ate.
What doesn't make sense to me is, first of all, I happen to know, and I'm not paskening for him, but I happen to know a Rav who specifically goes to Brooklyn and buys the soft matzah from Sephardim to have every year on his at his Seder. You made a comment, oh, but it's the Ashkenazim Masorah now to have the matzah we eat now. And I'm having a hard time with that concept because it seems like the soft matzah was really our Masorah before that. So I don't understand why they're posking and say, oh, our Masorah now is to have them, but it's really not because before that it was the soft matzah. So why can't we have the soft matzah if you want to go to Brooklyn and find, someone that does make it?
You are 100% correct. I think I know which rabbi you're talking about, but you are 100% correct. But that is our minhag. You're right. We should go back now that we know, at least we think we know, and the Sephardim have kept that Masorah alive. We should go back to the soft matzah. You're 100% correct. But the fact is that among Ashkenazic Jews, since I don't know how many thousands, almost 2,000 years, we've been eating the hard matzah. So
right.
it's very
so when you
hard.
say
you're 100%
when you say
correct.
Rav Schechter was asked and he said, no, this is our Masorah. So now if I decide, well, I have a source in Brooklyn where I can get soft matzah, can I get it or not? Am I going against Rav Schechter, who is our posek for today, who we follow, and says, well, really shouldn't, our Masorah is...
So what you're touching on is a much bigger question that I'm not in the position to make a determination about. That is, what is our Masorah and who determines our Masorah? And that's a much, much bigger question.
You do that in a half hour.
No. And I'm certainly not the one to make that determination. The point that you're raising is 100% correct. And, if it's a groundswell of support to going back to the original type of matzah that our forefathers ate as they left Mitzrayim, maybe there'd be enough pressure on the rabbis to give better hashgacha, and maybe Ashkenazim could start making the soft matzah.
We can start with Shomrei Torah and work our way from
all
there.
right, so we'll start a revolution. Anything else? Okay, have a wonderful day,
Yeah,
Al.
right. Wally,
Yeah,
if I'm invited to a Sephardi on Pesach, I'm allowed to eat what they cook. Just I should avoid rice and everything that's kidneys.
yes.
So, but if he makes a motzi on the soft matzah,
Okay, so
that's what he hands out.
so that's the question. If you're at a Sephardi Seder and they serve the soft matzah, the assumption is that it was made with the proper hashgacha and it's not considered chametz. And I suppose if you're at a Sephardi Seder, you would eat the soft matzah. That's what my assumption, unless you're very, very tradition oriented and you bring your own shmura matzah with you. It's a great question. It's a great question. I mean, the general question has been asked and answered in terms of can you eat at a Sephardi house except not eat their kitniot? And the answer would be yes. We assume the house is kosher lepesach because kitniot is not chametz. It's just a minhag. Okay. Good day.
After we finish with the matzah, then we can start on kitniyot.
Right. That next year. Yishem Adonai Baruch Me'atov Yad Olam. Rosh Kal Mishlot Vokayinu. He who else on for next like called me Tiv like called me Shem was on called me yourself Asher Barov Rogado Adonai. Amen. Amen. I should tackle kidney up next.
You let me know.
That's the best part, all the frosting, right?
Take it.